Okay, this is chapter 20 of Zodiac. Tuesday, December 20th, 1983. Evening. The wind rolled the mounded trees of Lake Herman Road, trees lost and found in the curves of the road and the unusual white fog. Exactly 15 years after Zodiac killed Betty Lou and David, I drove out to where it all began, by the old pump house near the gravel and tree road. The few cars that passed me appeared suddenly and swiftly vanished. I pulled up to the metal gate to the pump house and cut the engine. There were no lights anywhere. As I looked at the spot next to my car where the killer's white Chevrolet had been parked so long ago, I wondered, will the wealth of information we had about Zodiac, where were we going wrong? What was the mistake and perception that prevented us from seeing who he truly was? Narlow had said, there's enough here, we ought to be able to break this case. Either that or he's just sending us around in circles. I thought of all the theories that had come to me over the years. Was Zodiac a mental patient who was released or escaped periodically and during these intervals of freedom became active as a killer? Was he so sick that his double identity was unknown even to himself? No, I knew this would be true of a paranoid schizophrenic, but not a sexual sadist, which Zodiac is. He would know what he was doing and would remember. Were there two Zodiacs, one doing the killing and one doing the writing of the letters? Were there multiple Zodiacs, such as Sergeant Lundbold had once suggested? I doubted such a great secret could be kept by more than one person. Was there no Zodiac? Could the entire case have been one monstrous hoax, the work of someone who took credit for unrelated crimes? If so, he would at least be the killer of Paul Stein or a confederate of the killer because of the bloody shirt scrap mailed with some of the letters. The printing on the corridor at Lake Berryessa also linked Zodiac to that crime. Zodiac might be a traveling salesman who sold death county by county, state to state. Could he have been, as he hinted, a hunter? The expert marksmanship and the killer's knowledge of the area pointed to this. Who had grown bored with animal game. Perhaps a military man, a sailor stationed for a while in the Bay Area and then transferred? The gaps in the murder activities were about right for this. The wing walker's shoes, the cipher training, crew-cut hairstyle, navy garb, and the highly polished shine on his shoes would fit. However, for Zodiac to keep arranging to return to a Bay Area post was improbable. Most chilling of all was he a man on the inside, a cop-turned-killer. The highway patrol driving techniques, shooting skill, knowledge of police ID techniques, the outstretched flashlight led this way. Had he actually helped in the search for himself? Was he a reporter for one of the papers that Zodiac contacted? His command of punctuation and grammar was above normal. Both of these jobs would have given Zodiac expert access to progress in the investigation. Or was he merely a police groupie giving the detectives ideas on how to catch the killer? As to the fate of the Zodiac, he may have been arrested for another crime, become a suicide, died in an accident, or have been killed by one of his intended victims. But in all of these cases, evidence to his other identity as a mass murderer would certainly have been found out. He may have burned out and stopped killing, or people who were sure of his guilt may have taken care of him, especially if the killer were a policeman. Or the most horrible possibility of all, was he still killing after all these years? Of the 2,500 Zodiac suspects, only one remains that excites the investigators' interest and my own. Bob Hall Starr, the gut-feeling choice of most detectives. Nobody knows who Zodiac is, but based on the evidence I've seen, Starr is the best suspect found so far. Starr still carries a mysterious gray metal box he allows no one to look into. Dr. Rykoff, the police-appointed psychologist, says that Starr has 5 distinct personalities, and doctors at Langley, Porter, and UC at Berkeley have seen his case file. He of all suspects can be placed at the scene of all Zodiac murders. Brian Hartnell was driven by Sergeant Butch Carlsdale to hear Starr's voice at his job. Later he told me, there was nothing about what I heard or saw that would rule him out. Starr has confided to his friends that he is Zodiac. Perhaps he just thinks he is. I climbed out of the car, zipped up my jacket, and looked down dark Lake Herman Road. People around the Vallejo area have seen a man in a white auto who tailgates women on moonlit nights. They even have a name for him, the Phantom of Cordelia. I could imagine that phantom Chevy, ghastly white, roaring down dusty California backroads, the stalking man hunched behind the wheel, his moon-round face leaning into the lunar light, the whisper of tires, and the obsession. There's a white fog tonight out on Lake Herman Road, and the killing is 15 years in the past. But not for Pam, Darlene's sister. She's being followed again all the way to Lakeport, and someone is leaving notes, and there are the calls, one at her boyfriend's home in Anticoch, and one at her new home in the East Bay. It's always the same man saying the same line. This is a Zodiac speaking. Sunday, July 22nd, 1984. Star is now working in Santa Rosa. I was curious to see if Star was still refusing to print anything, and my friend agreed to help me find out. We parked behind the rusty old Anchor in the parking lot and walked around to the front of the store. I asked my friend for her thoughts on our visit to Star. Here's what she later wrote down. Star guided me in my purchases, helping me to select just the right item. When my arms were too full of purchases, he offered me a basket, finally throwing my list back on top of all the supplies. I need just one more thing, I said. I need an itemized receipt for all these things. One of these people up here in the front cash registers will help you, he replied. I'm not authorized to do that anymore. Oh, you've been so helpful. Well, thanks so much for all your help and for your time. From across the room, I observed Star turning to face her, putting a massive hand on each of her arms and grinning. In a second, he released her. I could see his lips moving, but I was too far away to hear what he was saying. She turned away, and Star reached out and patted her shoulder. Across the blindingly bright, illuminated showroom, Star was reflected in the brass compass, duplicated in the shiny varnished sides of the Chris craft, reflected in the deep and highly polished floor, mirrored in the brass work around him, and copied in 100 polished shaft bearings. He was reproduced full length in the floor-to-ceiling show window. Star was everywhere I looked.